and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, now and ever and forever. Amen. You have appeared as the unshakable foundation of the church, leading all mortals to safe pasture in the Lord, and confirming them by your teachings. O Venerable Basil, revealer of heavenly mystery, glory to you, O Lord, glory to you.
Let us give thanks.
The Lord told this parable. Two men went up to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, the other a publican. The Pharisee, with head unbowed, prayed in this fashion: I give you thanks, O God, that I am not like the rest of men, grasping, crooked, adulterous, or even like this publican. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes, not all I possess. The other man, however, kept his distance, not even daring to raise his eyes to heaven. All he did was beat his breast and say, O God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Believe me, this man went home from the temple justified, but the other did not. For everyone who exalts himself shall be humbled, while he who humbles himself shall be exalted.
See what happened when Father Walt leaves town? But all it would take is a text message or two to him to let him know what these Byzantines have done to his church. Maybe some of you have done that already. In this day of technology, if it existed back during Jesus' time, cell phones, smartphones, text messaging, we wouldn't necessarily be here this afternoon. Actually, we'd be here, but I'm not sure what liturgy or what rite we'd be celebrating. If they had a way to communicate then, the way we can communicate now. Because Jesus said simply, do this in remembrance of me. He didn't say how to do it. He said, do this in remembrance of me. Continue to come together, gather for the Eucharist, partake of my body and blood. Do this in remembrance of me. Not how, just to do it. And so in early Christianity, it began to spread like wildfire. And there were 5 major cities or centers where Christianity took hold. I'll use my hand to explain. Rome, Antioch, Alexandria, Constantinople, and Jerusalem. 5 major cities or centers or patriarchates where Christianity took hold. 4 of those cities, the last 4 that I mentioned, were east of the Mediterranean Sea. Rome was west of the Mediterranean Sea. That's where we get the connotation of the Western Church and the Eastern Church. Now, in those Eastern churches, which were a little closer in proximity, as the liturgy began to evolve, the rituals were somewhat similar. Not totally, but somewhat similar. But on the other side of the pond, on the other side of the Mediterranean, the rituals differed a little bit. And so when the bishops gathered together in council to make sure that theologically everyone was on the same page in terms of doctrine, they also talked in sense that the ritual was a little bit different. That the Eastern churches were using icons and the Western churches were using statues. And the Eastern churches were making the sign of the cross with the 3 fingers together. And the Western churches were making the sign of the cross with an open hand. And communion was a little different form, unleavened bread versus leavened bread. They took note of that, but they said, that's okay. It's the same faith, same doctrine. If you're doing something externally a little bit different, it's no big deal. If they had cell phones, the text messaging, And if they had what we have today, they would have been doing everything the same. There would have been these differences that exist within the context of the Catholic Church as there is today. This would be identical. How boring that would have been. But in the United States, we do have the expression of both rites of the Church, the Eastern and the Western rites. And I'm always very anxious to accept any invitation to share the Eastern branch of the Church. Blessed Pope John Paul II said the Church needs to breathe with both of her lungs, Eastern lung and the Western lung. In this country, the majority of Catholics are Roman Catholic, Western Church. Eastern Church is represented here in the United States, but not so much. So it's the Eastern churches that need to get out there so that we can fulfill what Blessed John Paul II said, so that there can be knowledge of both rites of the Church, knowledge of both of those lungs. And it's also in the lap of the Western Church, the Roman Rite, to see to it that their faithful have that knowledge, that they are aware that the Catholic Church is more than just the Roman Rite. And especially in the Cleveland area, where there's an abundance, actually, of Eastern Catholic churches, Catholic and Orthodox, in the area. It's really important, I think, to have that knowledge that the Catholic Church is more than just the Roman Rite, more than just the Western Church. Especially here at St. Basil, we're right down the street from you, too. So, to know that we exist and that we are Catholic. Some of the Eastern churches aren't Catholic, some are Orthodox. And that happened this way, because it's important to have that knowledge. Let's go back to my hand, and those 5 centers or cities of Christianity, all of whom were Catholic. In 1054, the entire Eastern Church went into schism. They split in 1054. They had differences politically, personality-wise, sometimes ritually, and they went into schism and called themselves Orthodox, meaning true believers. They said, we're the true believers. It was an unfortunate conflict that existed and took place. Over the course of the many centuries, certain branches of the Eastern Church returned to the Catholic Church. St. Joseph, Byzantine Ruthenians, we were one of them. In 1642, we returned with the Union of Užhorod. We recognized that the Pope is the head of the Church, and we became Catholic once more under the Pope. Some of the churches did return, and those are the Orthodox churches that you find in the Cleveland area. They follow the Byzantine or Eastern ritual. So if you walk into an Orthodox church, it will look very similar to a Byzantine Catholic church. Very similar because our roots are the same. But we breathe with both of those lungs. With Orthodox, they don't recognize the Pope as the head. They recognize him as one of equals. But we're part of the church that recognizes the Pope as the head of the church, and therefore we can call ourselves Catholic. As we continue with this liturgy, we're commemorating actually the feast of St. Basil the Great. We call him Basil, you call him Basil, tomatoes, tomatoes. But he was a great teacher in the church, a doctor of the church, a great holy father of the church, and in conjunction with that, momentarily, Father Day is going to introduce, there's going to be a blessing for teachers who are in attendance today at the congregation, a blessing in the hands of teachers, both catechists and those who teach in schools. And so I'd like to end with that. Father Dave, if you could explain that.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Father Wald and our parish community, Father Bruce, we welcome you and your deacons and the whole people of St. Joseph's Church. It's great to have you. I think this is a great experience. It's a learning experience for me. Deacon Lou and I are sitting over there in wonderment, wondering what's next. And I can honestly tell you we don't know. But it's just a great experience for all of us to get a greater dedication of the Byzantine Rite. I told Deacon Lou, I said, how would you like to do this every Sunday at 7:30 in the morning? I don't think I could. But we're thrilled to have you, and you are most welcome. Now we know that one of the great gifts of our patron St. Basil was the charism of teaching, of sharing knowledge about faith, but also concerning the wisdom he gained through his life experiences and commitment to learning. That is why this year we want to honor all of you who are teachers, professors, catechists, and those who provide support services in schools and centers of learning. Through your service, our communal wisdom as a human community and as a community of faith is handed on to future generations. So we now invite you to rededicate yourselves to this ministry by coming forward to have your hands anointed by members of our Spiritual Life Commission at this time. May God bless you richly in the work that you continue.